hello, and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, we're going to highlight the Connecticut Critics Circle, and the president of the Critics Circle is Stuart Brown, and I'm thrilled to welcome him back to the program. He's been here before, but I know that you love to get to know him again. So, Stu, thanks so much for being here. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Stu, what you and I had talked about before we started taping is I like to introduce the guest to the viewers so that they get to know the background. So why don't you take us back into your background? Let us get to know you.
Well, I think this is only a 28-minute show, but I'll try and be brief. So currently, as you mentioned, I'm president of the Connecticut Critics Circle. So we're a group of theater critics, writers, bloggers, radio personalities, and we review the equity theaters in the state. So equity is the union of the theaters, and there's a lot of community theater, but the equity theaters are the more professional ones. So the things that you would think of: Goodspeed, Hartford Stage, Long Wharf, Westport. And so we review those, and those reviews are posted on our website, ctcritics.org. And then at the end of the year, in June, we have our awards ceremony. So think of the Tony Awards. We have the same types of categories: Best Musical, Best Actor in a Play. And it's a great chance for not only to honor the people in the state that have put on these productions, but also get theater people together. So that's what we do all year, and we attend, I'm looking at my spreadsheet, oh goodness, 30 or more shows a year, and some of us go all over the state. So I'm in the West Hartford area, but I'll head over to Ridgefield or down to Long Wharf. So I'm all over the state. And in October, for example, there are 4 productions, and they are, again, all over the state: comedies, dramas, musicals. So I do that. I also run a 24/7 online Broadway radio station. So if you like Broadway music, you want to tune into soundsofbroadway.com. It is the best, if I say so myself, the best online Broadway station, because you'll hear well-known and popular songs, but you also hear obscure musicals or little-known musicals, and there's so much great music in those shows. So this is better than any, like I said, any radio station there is. And then in my spare time, I'm also a playwright. I like to write what are called 10-minute plays, and believe it or not, these are very popular. There are dozens and dozens of festivals all over the country, and I've had my plays produced in a lot of New England states, even down to Texas. Even a British podcasting site aired one of my plays. So that's sort of where I'm at right now.
Stu, we will talk about all of these things because they're all very fascinating. But back to the Critics Circle. Did you know growing up that you wanted to write reviews of theater? Did you ever want to perform? How did that all come about?
So in high school, I did a few plays. In fact, I have a picture of me, which I did not give you because I don't want it aired, but from How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I had a minor role, and I did a chipmunk cheer, and it was a lot of fun, but I realized I'm not an actor. And in college, I had an opportunity to start going to theater and writing reviews for radio, and I liked it, and I felt, well, I still do feel I'm a good writer. And I've now been going to Broadway for over 50 years, regional theaters and whatnot. So I have a lot of background. I've seen a lot, what makes a good show, maybe what not. And it kind of sort of evolved about, well, in college, but really 20 years ago, I started a blog, and I've just been continuing with that.
To the individual, and I've got a lot of people that like to learn about the arts and theater and film and so on and so forth, museums that are watching us. For those that would like to be a theater critic, what would your advice be for them to get started?
Well, they can contact me if they would like for theater. And I don't know if you want me to give you my email or if they actually go to the Connecticut Critics website, there's a contact form. So if you just go again to ctcritics.org, and if you're interested in becoming a theater critic, we actually have what's called a mentor program with young individuals in the state that we pair up with one of our seasoned veterans to help them learn the trade, and over a year or two get them to the point where they could be a quote unquote legitimate theater critic. If they don't want to go that route, they could start their own blog, go to the theater, and start writing reviews to post on their blog. Again, they can always contact me, ask me to review them, or I can send them out. And as they get more and more of those under their belt, then they can start contacting theaters and say, hi, I'm a critic and I'd like to get seats for shows, and you just evolve from there.
Now, I'm very honored you have invited me to become a member of the organization, and I am thrilled that I am now part of the organization. And I understand from the press releases I've received that you get to go and see the plays before they open. Is that what happens for a theater critic usually?
Most of the time, it's either, well, in Connecticut, we usually get invited for opening night. So, for example, Playhouse and Park in West Hartford, their upcoming show is called The Shark is Broken, and it's about the making of Jaws. And that opens on Wednesday, October 2nd, but it has 2 days of previews and then officially opens October 4th. So the critics are invited for October 4th, or for maybe, if they can't go that day, a couple of days after. New York is usually after a show has opened, and that could be a week, 2 weeks, or so.
So you become a theater critic, you're part of the organization. What happens next? Do you submit them to newspapers, to websites? How do you get the word out of your review?
Each individual has their own mechanism. So, for example, I have a blog. Some people have, we have one of our critics, he does a YouTube review. So he posts his reviews on YouTube. Then we post them on our Connecticut Critics website, and then we also send a copy to the theaters so they know. And we send the reviews whether we like the show or we don't. A lot of times, especially for new works, theaters like what we have to say, because that way they can use the reviews, what we're saying, to tinker to improve the show.
Now, you mentioned Broadway. We think of New York. It's the place for theater. How is the state of Connecticut doing with theater? Are you pleased with what you see?
Theater in Connecticut right now is still having issues because of COVID. If you ask any artistic director, they're going to say, we need the audiences to continue to start coming back. So to come for individual tickets, subscriptions, so more people need to go to the theater in Connecticut. Pricing is much better in Connecticut, and you have a lot of great productions. My one complaint with Connecticut theater, and this is more because they're trying to bring people into the theater, you're going to see a lot more well-known shows, and you see the same show season after season. So, for example, Jersey Boys, big show. Every season, someone or one or two theaters in Connecticut is doing Jersey Boys. Why? It sells out. They extend the run. As a theater critic, though, it's just how many times can you see Cabaret, Little Shop of Horrors? I mean, there are a lot of shows that just come up a lot, and I would prefer to see new shows or maybe shows that haven't been done. And some theaters are better than that than others. And for example, Theater Works in Hartford, they're going to do newer works or edgier works. Yale Rep down in New Haven is going to do the same. So you know you're not going to see something there that you've seen elsewhere in the state.
And what about the theater critic that would like to become a member of the organization? How does somebody apply to do that?
So again, they could go to our website, ctcritics.org, and they can contact me. We do want to see people with a track record. So it can't just be, hi, I want to be a theater critic, or, oh, I like to write. Those people we would push into our mentor program. But if someone out there has been writing a blog for a couple of years or doing something as far as theater criticism, contact us. We will send them a membership application, look at what they've done, and then sort of move on from there.
And another thing that we want to talk about, which you mentioned, is Sounds of Broadway, a 24/7 online radio station. Tell us about that, and how did it get started? What's it all about?
It is, like I said, the best, I know it's biased, but the best avenue to hear musical theater, stage, songs, and shows. And if there's, for example, if you're listening to Sirius XM, in my view, they play the same shows, the same songs. They don't do a lot of off-Broadway. They rarely do the London stage. I do everything. And so I curate all the playlists myself, and I try and have that mix. And before I retired, I worked at the University of Connecticut for 30 years, so I was an educator. And part of me is I want to educate the musical theater population. You have a lot of individuals, high school, college, that are just learning about the history of Broadway musicals. So I try to bring them up to speed. So it's online on your computer. You can download an app. I have a weekly newsletter to inform people. So again, they can just go to soundsofbroadway.com. There's a link to sign up for that. I have weekly puzzles. I have over 100 trivia quizzes. I love Broadway trivia. I can't remember what I ate for dinner last night, but I could tell you who starred in this musical 30 years ago. So if you like trivia, you can go to the website, click on Fun and Games. And there's a lot of other things that I do within the station. A daily composer series focusing on the music of a composer, composing team. So it's a really great website to explore, in addition to listening to music.
Okay, Stu, let's take a break. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Vacation rental cons top the list of travel scams reported to Better Business Bureau. Con artists often pretend to own these rentals and try to talk you into paying them directly instead of through a travel company. It may be tempting because scammers will offer a cheaper deal, but the last thing you want to do after taking time off of work and paying for airfare is to get to your destination and learn the home you plan to rent doesn't even exist. Do extra research before buying into an ad you see on social media or online. The free cruise is also a common con. Read the fine print and watch out for add-on fees, taxes, and other charges. And finally, beware of third-party booking sites that claim to sell airfare. You pay with a credit card and then receive a call from the company asking you to verify personal information such as your bank account. In other cases, you're told your flight was canceled and convinced to fork over more money to rebook. To see the full list of vacation scams and how to avoid them, visit bbb.org/travel, and to report a scam, visit bbb.org/scam-tracker.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and again, I hope you're enjoying the show. My conversation continues on with Stuart Brown. And Stuart, I wanted to continue on with Sounds of Broadway, a 24/7 online radio station, soundsofbroadway.com. How did you decide that you wanted to create something like that? You're a very busy person. How do you do all of that in your day?
I don't sleep.
That's right.
So for about 25 years, I had a weekly radio show, just an hour-long radio show at the Trinity College radio station in Hartford, not far from my house, but between driving 15 minutes, doing the show, driving back, it was about a 2-hour commitment, and that's, rain, snow, you have to go to the station. And so I mentioned it to one of the other DJs, and he said, oh, did you know that there's this company where you could have your own radio station? The only thing you need is a computer and microphone. So I explored it and started the station about 4 years ago now. I have thousands and thousands of songs from, goodness, over 500-600 musicals. So I was able to do everything, or I'm able to do everything really at my home studio, and it's just a lot easier. And I won't bore you with the details of programming it, but like I said, each week I'll go in and curate a number of 3-hour playlists that I then position into like an online grid. So I make sure that I don't repeat a lot of shows and introduce shows. So after a couple, let's say like 3 weeks from now, you might hear a show and then you won't hear that show for another month. And that way I can really include all the different songs. So it's actually easier for me than going to a regular terrestrial station.
And the next thing we can't forget is you as a playwright. How did that get started? I know we talked a little bit before we started taping about writing and that you liked it. What brought all this playwriting to be a part of your life today?
Because I'm not busy enough.
Exactly.
So I knew about these 10-minute plays, and like I said, there are these festivals all over the country, and I never really wanted to pursue it, but then I had some ideas. I actually wrote a piece for a college journal years ago, and they didn't accept it, and it sort of just sat there, and I said, oh, you know what, this might make an interesting play. And so I did that, and then people liked it, and I started coming up with other ideas. And what I've done pretty much with all my plays, these are incidents that are personal or things that happen to me that also happen to others. So a great example, I wrote this play called I Don't Care, which is about an individual trying to get his yearly physical and all the roadblocks into when he walks into this office to try and get this. And so let's say it's a 9 or 10 page script. There's something that is said on page 2, and every single time the audience goes hysterical. Why? Because what is said, every one of us has experienced it. And people come to me afterwards and they go, this happened to me. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So it just became a lot of fun. And all my plays have a twist to it. So you think something's going to happen one way, and then it goes another way. All my plays are comedies. I have one drama, and I would say 90% of the people think it's going in this direction, and then 3 pages till the end, it takes a twist, and you could hear people in the audience going, oh. So that's fun. It's fun when people enjoy what you write.
Now, I'm thinking about how you decided that being a playwright was going to be part of your life. Now, how do you get started to submit yourself? You mentioned festivals. What's the process to get your work from the written page out there for it to be performed?
Well, it's really an individual task. So you write, and because, again, I've been going to the theater so long, and I kind of know how a script is, or you could go online. There's a lot of, I'd say, tutorials on how to write it. One thing I think is very, very important is find someone to read what you've written, or 2 people that will be very honest with you. And I submit everything to my wife, who is critic number 1. I have a colleague who runs the theater, and between the 2 of them, they've given me some great feedback. And then after that, there's a Facebook group and I think it's playwright submission. So you could go look on Facebook, do a search, and they'll announce different festivals. And you just follow the guidelines, you send it, and see what happens. Like I said, a very, very small percentage of these scripts are accepted. But you try, or if you know a theater company. So, for example, 2 theaters in Connecticut I approached, and they did a whole series of my plays. There's a theater in Newtown, the Newtown Players, and they did 7 of my plays for one whole weekend as a fundraiser, which I when they first asked me or broached the subject, I said, "You really want to do a whole weekend? That's a lot." And they said, "Yes." So they raised over $2,500 doing my plays, and the audience loved them. So you could do festivals, but you could also do your own legwork to try and get them staged.
I like the show to be informative, to help teach the audience some information. And what we didn't do with Sounds of Broadway is talk about your radio studio, which I think you mentioned is at home. How did you put that together?
Well, this will be a quick answer. So you might see I have a microphone with a windshield, and I'm talking into my laptop. That's the studio. I have some decorations around, but that's really it. You can really do it just with a microphone and a computer. Now, as I said, I have thousands of songs loaded, I guess, in the cloud with this company, but that's all you really need.
So that would be your advice to those individuals that would like to start a radio program show in their home, would be those 2 items, the microphone and the laptop?
Yes, you have those 2. I would not recommend people maybe jumping into a whole radio station because it's 24/7. You can't just say, well, I'll program for 3 hours a day. I mean, if people are going to tune in, they want to hear something. But you could definitely do a show. And one of the other things I didn't mention is I also syndicate a 1-hour show music radio program I'm up to 6 different colleges around the world. I just got one in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So I have a couple in the US and Canada. And I tape the show at home with my microphone, my computer, save the file, and then I send them the file. So I don't have to go to the station, and then they play it. So it seems like I'm part of that station. So that's an idea I would do, is if you want to create a 1-hour show for anything, Broadway, rock, country, and practice, get it to a point where you think it's good, maybe have some friends listen to it, and then you can contact college stations around the country. Again, go to the web. If you type in list of college radio stations, a whole website comes up, and then you just have to contact them and see what happens.
Is that something that you thought that you would be doing as you were growing the station out of your home, that you would be heard around the world with your work?
No, but growing up, for some of us at a certain age, when there are 3 channels on TV and you had your rotary phone, and there's no such thing as the internet. But with the radio station, what's fun is you can look at real-time listeners, and there's a map of the world. So, there's someone listening in Nepal or Germany or somewhere in South America. So, nowadays it is all over the world, where growing up, I thought one day, I'd love to own my own radio station, but that was more a terrestrial radio station. So depending upon the power of the station, people within a 20 or maybe 50-mile radius could hear it. Well, now you don't worry about that because the internet brings it everywhere.
We are starting to slowly run out of time. Back to the playwright part of you. Will you continue to do this? It sounds as if you have so many things going on. Is that a special part of your life as you're in the aging process as an adult?
Yes. And the nice thing is I've written about, oh goodness, 10 or 12, and some of these festivals say, well, you can only submit one. Well, if the one I submit isn't accepted, next year I could do another. So I kind of have this reservoir right now where I probably don't have to write another play for a couple of years and I could still submit. But I have a couple of ideas that I'm working on. I've written the draft of a full 90-minute one-act play, which is on the shelf right now because I have another major project. I'm trying to finish a book that I've been writing for years, and I'm getting to the point where there is light at the end of the tunnel. So when that book is done, then I go to my one act to work on that, and in between, come up with some of these other 10-minute plays.
Okay, Stu, well, we have run out of time, so I want to thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much. Let me share all this information. Again, if you have any questions about being a critic or you want to get involved, ctcritics.org, and just click on the contact form. That comes directly to me. So thank you.
Okay, Stu, thank you. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. I want to thank you so much for being here. Hope you have a super day. Tune in again. I'll see you next time.